6 after 11, I'm Darryl Parks in for Scott Sloan, and Scott is back on Monday. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9:06. Well, one of the most fascinating reads I make numerous times a year is in a publication that's available. It's called the TrendsJournal. And the website is TrendsResearch.com, and the author and the editor and the publisher of the TrendsJournal is Gerald Celente. And what is in this document numerous times a year is a forecast to what is happening in our world economically, what is happening in our world politically, and culturally, and the things that we are going to experience. And over the years, Gerald has been almost dead on in his predictions, including what is happening right now in the Middle East. In fact, news breaking right now that in Tunisia, the U.S. Embassy is having smoke rise from the embassy, and people are scaling the walls there. And Gerald Celente joins us here on The Big One. Welcome to 700 WLW, Gerald.
Oh, thank you for having me, Darryl.
Now, the Summer Trends Journal is all about the first great war of the 21st century. And Gerald, in conversations that we've had in the past, you have talked about this destabilization that is happening now in the Middle East, and this is just the precursor to what you're forecasting the future for us here in this country and in the world.
Yes, unfortunately, when you start putting all the pieces together, Darryl, we all know what's going on in the Middle East. This thing about it being about this film, this movie, that's like saying that World War I began because the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated at Sarajevo. That is only the match in a box of matches that has ignited the fuse of America's Middle East policy. And, I remember when you couldn't say these kind of things back when 9/11 happened, and of course I had been writing about it before it happened. And the Americans don't want to realize that they hate us over there, not because of our freedom and liberty. Hey, you want to send in a couple more Predator drones? I got it. How about attacking a foreign country? Let's start with Afghanistan, go to Iraq, and I will have a wonderful humanitarian mission over there in Libya. Oh, after that, let's go into Syria. Oh, and how about propping up dictators and these other? Oh, don't call the king of Saudi Arabia a dictator. He's a king. Kings are good. You read little books. Kings are nice. They're not dictators or emirs or any. So what we're seeing is blowback. Now move away from what's going on in the Middle East, and let's take a trip over to Europe. Look what's going on over in Greece. Look what's going on over in Spain. You know what the real unemployment rates are in those countries? You're looking around 40% unemployment.
Yeah, I mean, they're admitting, when they admit to 25% or 20% in some of those countries, in Spain it's 25%. When they're admitting to that, it's a hell of a lot more, just like in this country where it's not 8.1%.
Exactly. What you have, this has nothing to do with pro-democracy movements. It has nothing to do with anything other than a few people having a lot and a lot of people having nothing. And they're revolting. And you look what's going on. Here, this doesn't make the news. On Tuesday, 1.5 million people took to the streets in Barcelona. 1.5 million. There are demonstrations and riots going on virtually every week in Greece. Portugal is unraveling. What we're seeing is the first great war of the 21st century. Add them up. You just broke with the news of Tunisia. We'll go back a year and a half ago with Tunisia when that government toppled. Go to Egypt. Take a trip over to Yemen. Oh, wonderful going-ons over there. Oh, how about Bahrain? Yeah, Bahrain's blowing up. Oh, they're also having protests even in Saudi Arabia. Look what's going on in Libya. How about Syria? Oh, yeah, go to Algeria. Take a look at Morocco. And again, look around Europe. So this is what we're seeing. It's real. And no one's calling it what it is.
Well, why is it new? As you mentioned, we're not hearing about the protests happening in Barcelona in the news media here in this country. Is it because embassies aren't burning, or is it because of our we're culturally more in understanding in what is happening in Europe, and we just have these misconceptions, or we don't have an understanding of the cultures in the Middle East?
the reason I believe they're not broadcasting it is because the mainstream media is geared for little kids. If there was a major actress or actor that died right now, they'd be picking over the flesh of this person until way after they're in the ground. And this is just what it's become. And I call them prostitutes, because this isn't real stuff that they're putting out there. Secondly, is what they do is they try to make these issues look too complicated for us little people to understand it. But here's what's going on in Europe. I'll give you an example. On Wednesday, the German Supreme Court had to rule whether or not it was in the German Constitution for taking the taxpayers' money and giving it to the bailout mechanisms. They call it the economic stability mechanism. So that sounds complicated, an economic stability mechanism. Let me make it really clear. Here's the deal. We're going to take your money, hundreds of billions of dollars, about $700 billion in total for just this go-around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give it to all the banks. The money's going directly in the banks. That money is then going to go to the banks and the investors that made bad bets. And now we're going to cover their bad bets, and because you're one of the guys, we're going to give you interest for the money you lost in between. That's exactly what's happening. And guess what? The same thing is happening in the United States with QE2 and QE3 and QE1 and QE.
Right. Gerald, you bring up a wonder, and I was thinking about this yesterday, and I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring it up with you anyway. To your point, all that's happening now is you have this open-ended QE3 the Fed agreeing to buying $40 billion a month in those mortgage-backed securities, and that money is all it's doing is transferring that money right into the banks that made bad debts.
Yeah,
bad bets, I should say.
And there are a number of things. Number one, in the old days when I was a young man, people used to have a thing called saving accounts. And when you started getting older, you'd put your money away in the bank for savings. And you'd get some nice little interest on it to get you through. No more. They announced they're going to keep interest rates near zero down to 2015. Number two, you're going to start seeing a spike in all the commodities again because they're devaluing the currency. You saw what happened to the price of gold.
Right.
Again, you look at the price of oil, look what's going on. Number three is that when you put it, again, the first great war of the 21st century together, one of my sayings as a former Bronx boy is that when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And people are losing everything. So what they do to add insult to injury is not only do they tax you to get this money to give to their friends, but you know what? You need some austerity measures. We're going to raise your sales tax. We're going to raise your property taxes. We're going to raise your school taxes. We're going to cut benefits. We're going to cut pensions. As a matter of fact, we'll raise your retirement age too after you die. So what they're doing is they're inflaming the situation when people have nothing, and they're making it even more difficult. In my entire life, I have never seen anything like this. This is the greatest bank robbery in world history, and the banks are doing the robbing.
Well, Gerald Celente is the editor and publisher of the TrendsJournal. We in the last couple of weeks we went through the political conventions, and it is amazing how none of this, or very little of this, was discussed.
You talk about disgust. How about disgusting? How about another chapter in the presidential reality show? That's all this was. I could never imagine Eisenhower stooping to such stupid stunts as these two guys. Mm-hmm. And you know what really gets me? As their wives come out, and they have the perfect husbands. Oh, what wonderful, wonderful husbands. I'm 65 years old. I never heard a woman talk about the husband the way these guys talk about it.
Yeah, my wife wouldn't talk about me like that. No.
Have you Have you ever sat down with anybody? Oh, and his socks don't even smell,
Yeah.
I mean, it is disgusting. And the reality is that it's all an act. It's a presidential reality show. And by the way, our forecast that we made on October 3rd, 2011, we said that if the front runners in the Republican Party, who they were at that time, Romney, Bachmann, and Perry, was still one of those who were out in front and got the nomination, that Obama would win. And the reason we said it was because, again, it's only a political reality show. And Obama is a better actor. He reads the teleprompter better. He plays the role better. And he was Reverend Ike at the end of his speech.
Well, I mean, in this past week, after the unrest in the Middle East, who was it? Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal said that he looked like Nixon, meaning Romney.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was a great comment, and I went back and I looked at the video online, and I was like, he does look like Nixon. Just shifty looking. Yeah.
So the whole thing, it's and well, by the way, I'm not voting for president in this election. I will not vote for a lesser of two evils. I don't do business with lesser of two evils. I don't associate with lesser of two evils. It'll be a cold day when I put my life and my future in the hands of a lesser of two evils. To me, this system, it's like voting for a member of the Bananos or the Gambinos. Take your pick.
All right, Gerald Celente, here we sit in September of 2012. We're on the verge I mean, when I read your publication numerous times a year, it's amazing how, and I'll go back and read it, and how things that you have talked about that may have slipped my mind come true. Where are we going now in the next couple of years with this first great war of the 21st century?
It's not, how they say, Darryl, that the generals always fight the last war, and that's what they're looking at again with this one. This is going to be wars of weapons of mass destruction. This is going to be wars of real terror. And also, this is astounding as well, and we're writing the Autumn Trends Journal now, that Israel has inserted itself, and these are not my words, so don't send me any, I'm an anti-Semite kind of stuff. Israel has inserted itself into America's presidential race by putting pressure on both candidates to support Israel to take out Iran's nuclear facility. And again, whether or not it is a real nuclear facility, regardless, making bombs, that is, rather than just power. If Israel attacks Iran, this is going to be the beginning of World War III. I talk about buying gold and different investment strategies that I use. I don't give investment advice. Gold won't be worth anything because life won't be worth living. This will be hell breaking loose. Look what's going on, Darryl. Anybody out there, just pick up the newspaper, turn on the TV, name the countries where they're burning down embassies or protesting against America and its allies. Run through the list. Tunisia, Algeria, Yemen, you just mentioned Tunisia, Lebanon. You go down the list. There's this saying, this Bedouin saying, me against my brother and me against my cousin, my brother, me, my cousin against our neighbor, and all of us against the foreigner. If Israel attacks Iran, we are going to see a blow-up in the Middle East that nobody ever wants to be alive to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Gerald, I mean, it's you have been prophetic in the past, and there's no reason to. I mean, and it's just common sense. I mean, it's not
common sense.
I mean, it's not you. You being a conspiracy theorist or anything. I mean, it's common sense if you do think conflicts through in that manner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
right.
That's what we see coming up, and we're concerned. And we said this when the panic of '08 began, and they started these so-called recovery bailouts. We said they were nothing more than a cover-up. It would not solve the problem, and when all else is lost, they take you to war. The crash of '29, the Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, World War. The panic of '08, the Great Depression, recession, currency wars are heating up, trade wars are heating up, and unfortunately, World War is on the horizon unless the people stand up and take measures to stop it.
All right, Gerald Celente, who is the editor and publisher of the Trends Journal. Thank you as always. Have a great weekend, Gerald.
No, thank you so much for having me, Darryl.
Okay, take care. Gerald Celente, always a man with something to say and interesting. And look, I'm not a conspiracy nut, and as I said to Gerald there, I'm not. He really isn't. a conspiracy nut. If you sit and you really read the Trends Journal that he publishes four times a year, and I go back and I read these and I keep them. And when things such as the unrest that is happening in the Middle East, I go back and I track it in these. And again, it's common sense if you think it through. Gerald Celente, the editor and publisher of the Trends Journal, and the website is TrendsResearchInstitute.com.